So we were studying IPFS, so we'll get back to it. Resilience. No one point of failure. Users do not need to trust each other. In other words, failure of a single node in the network does not affect the functioning of the yes, entire network. An IPFS node can fetch data from network as long as at least other node in the network has the data, regardless of its location. Centralization, no single person or entity controls design and performance. Duplicated field locations, allowing users to access data from nearest location using addressing instead of location based addressing. Because data can be addressed based on its content. A node of the network can fetch data from any other node in the network. That has a results performance issues like latency are reduced. Link route. I'm thinking about how government can regulate blockchains by instructing internet service providers, because we are still dependent on internet, right? I mean, it's just a data transfer. We can do it anyway, any sneaky way. But then those would get blocked too. The government can always get control of blockchain. I think if we try to build something in blockchain, we should ensure that it can, it would not get under the radar of government, or even it should be legal. It should not do something like help in tax evasion or something like that. Else there is trouble. It seems like, because government would find its own way to regulate stuff. We also need to know how. What is the solution for things like terror funding and stuff? If something like a global currency is available that is not regulated by a central body, how do you stop money laundering? Vendor lock-in. What if we make a cloud through blockchain? It solves the cloud issues of being vendor locked in and high price data, being data present in client cloud instead of being in our control. Hmm, that's a good idea. But yeah, being a front end developer, that would be really ambitious. How much do I know about networking and how cloud computing works? I should initially target something that is related to front end and serves using the blockchain. data storage facility like this by first gateway. A whole productivity app based on blockchain. Blockchain provides us a way to verify authenticity and to track. These are the two things we should leverage in whatever we are making. A password management application that stores data in blockchain. This one is achievable and can be done quickly. I am going to work on this only. Let me check if this exists or not. It already exists. It's a Chrome extension. It exists, but it doesn't look good. interesting in blockchain, because how do you mutate data in blockchain? Mutating. Let me read a little on multi-format data, because I encounter this a lot. I don't know exactly what it is.
Hello everyone, we are going to start a series on multi-part form data. We'll be discussing more about multi-part form data in subsequent videos, but today I'm going to give you a high-level introduction about what is multi-part form data and what are the basic things you need to keep in mind when you are coding. Okay, so in this video I'm going to explain what is multi-form. The name itself says like multi-form. Okay, that means whenever you have a requirement where you want to pass more than one payload. For example, if you go to postman and observe something, if you are having a post method and if you go to body, and usually you all see like you will be going to raw, select this and pass it as a text, or if it is a JSON you pass it JSON. It's always one payload that you are going to send, and it is form of
I'm not
text
sure
or
if these are the
whatever
same
it
thing
is,
we were
but
talking
not
about.
in files. But
This is a
when there
multi-part
is
I
a
was talking.
requirement where you need to pass more than one file or more than one payload, then you have to opt for multi-part form data. So when it comes to postman, for testing purpose you will be choosing the option form data over here. So it is not necessarily be a file. Okay, usually multi-part, right? Multi-part is more than one payload. Whenever you want to pass, suppose you have a JSON payload, you have an XML payload. To process it, there is a requirement where the input should contain both XML and JSON payload. In such cases you will be choosing multi-part form data as the out. I mean, you will be requesting multi-part form data. So here you can see something like key and value. key is something which is used to represent, like if it is a payload 1, I can just type payload 1. Before choosing this, I want to show you something. Just if you hover over here, you can see an option whether you want this payload as text or as a file. You have two options. Either you can upload a file and send it to your send it for processing, or you can send the data as text. It is your option. Okay, so in this particular video, I'll be showing you 4 payloads. Okay, let me type payload 1, which I'll be sending a JSON payload. Remember, this is just a text, not actual JSON, but still my text is having a JSON format. For example, name colon Shravan. Okay, this is one payload. Now I want to pass other payload, payload 2. You can see name, and this I want to pass something like XML. So I'll say name Shravan. Okay, now I want my third payload to be a file. A file can be anything, a JSON file. So to choose the file option, just drop down, click on file,
Okay, so
and
multi-part
now you
form
will be
data can
having an
be of
option to
different
select a
types.
file.
That's why we
Now for
use multi-part.
example, I'll be having
Now I
my
get it.
PDF file. I want to process a PDF file along with the other two payloads for any business requirement. Next, payload 4, I want to pass again to choose a file here. Okay, this is just from sending, when you are sending from Postman, but in next videos I'll be showing how to pass these inputs like payload 1, payload 2,
Well, not
payload
watch the
3,
whole
payload
thing. This
4
7 minutes
via
long.
HTTP requester. But this is just,
He will be doing HTTP request.
and let us observe what is the format of those 4 payloads, how it is structured. Let's discuss about that. DW. Alright, so here you can see the boundary as well. This is the property which you can just Google, which is not necessary for our scope now, but you can observe that in parts it will be having a description of each payload. So your key values are very important. Whatever you will be giving here in keys, payload 1, 2, 3, 4, it will be appeared over here. In the same way, this is from Postman, but if you want to send the request to via HTTP requester, then you need to have a transform message with output application multipart form, output multipart form data, and create a request something like payload 1, payload 2. So these are the key names which your actual API is accepting. Okay, now if you observe, if I just extract each payload, every payload every part has, so every part has a key name, and within that key name you can see there are headers. So in this headers you can see it is
Each payload would
describing
have
about the
its own header.
content disposition. That is nothing but the name is nothing but the key name here. So whenever you want to send, so most of them are confused with this name. What is this name? Actually this name is not a file name or something. For example, you might think that for payload 3, let me go to payload 3, you may think that name is nothing but this 805 blah blah blah. No, your name is payload 3, and if at all it is a file, it will display like file name. If you observe these two, payload 1 is simple text and payload 3 is a file. So the difference between these two things you can see here is name, which is common, which is a key. File name, yes, you are having a file name for here because you are selecting this type as file. So you will be getting a file name as well. If at all there is a business requirement where you need to extract file names and all, you can just make use of this. So how to extract that file name I will be showing in a short while. Okay, next subtype is form data. So for all multipart form data, by default subtype is form data. You don't have to worry. Okay, you can just hard code this value subtype form data, because I have already shown you in wiki that we have in multipart we have multiple subtypes. One of them is form data. Okay, so coming back to Postman, so this is headers part, and the next part is called content. Here you can see name is Ravan, but content it is showing something like binary. Yes, it will show as binary because output we have selected as data view, application data view. But how to extract the values of JSON, how to extract the values as XML, okay, we shall see now. Okay, now what I'll do is I will stop my application. I'll go here, just keep a transfer message over here. Okay, I'll just for now keep this as payload because I just wanted to debug it and show you how to extract these values, and I'll run the application in debug mode. While this application is getting deployed, I want to stress few points again. Every multipart is having a root tag called file name, okay, file name, and then at the end in content type as a file. So these are the two things. Suppose your RESTful API is accepting only file, then make sure that you are passing a file name, content type is always your job to make sure that this is a valid JSON that you are passing. Payload 1, either you can use dot payload 1. There are two ways to access the content. Dot payload 1, again dot content, because my content is outside of headers. So dot content, I'll be getting the content. Or you can just use payload parts of 0 because this is the first part of payload, so it will give the same thing. Okay, you can choose any other way. Again, you have a lot of guys are having this confusion, like whether I have to use payload dot parts of 0 dot content or payload dot parts dot the key name dot content. You can use either way. When you are sure about the number of parts that are present, always you can make use of. Why I am saying when you are sure about a number of parts, because if for example I have something like payload 5, you can say it is null. Okay, in such case, to just avoid, I will be using with the key name dot payload dot parts dot payload 1 dot content. Now you can see here that my content is in base 64 because my media type is DW. So how to extract that JSON? Next, to read this, so what you can make use of this data with syntax is read operation. So read your content comma application JSON. So here you can see that in this way you can access your name comma Shravan. So if I see here, if I do something like dot name, you can see you are able to access the value of Shravan. This is how, when someone is consuming you, for example now we are consuming the request right from the postman. So to access these values, this is the way how you have to approach, just reading this application JSON. You cannot keep application XML because this is not actually a XML file. Now you can we have seen that payload 2 is an XML, so let us just keep payload 2 and let's keep XML. Okay, this is binary content. Okay,
Content. Binary content. start from here. How do I remember where to start from? Good question. How do I remember where to start from? I'll put a I'll put a storage bookmark here. How to put bookmarks? बस आया तो लंबे 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 रातें. How do I change the view? Escape. I want to insert a bookmark. How do I do that?